the three factors that we identify as being very powerful, both to explain why Latin America did well during the downturn and why Latin America is rebounding faster, sooner, and more strongly than other regions, are the following. First, improved macroeconomic and financial policy frameworks. They were built over many years through improvements in monetary policy and central banking, fiscal policy, and financial and prudential policy. And these institutional and policy innovations, what essentially did, one way to put it, is that they transformed some factors that used to be amplifiers of external shocks into cushions or shock absorbers. And these are especially the cases of the currencies. Currencies in Latin America used to be weak, so they used to magnify shocks and transmit magnification through the local economy. Currencies now have become shock absorbers without adverse ripple effects. The same used to be the case of fiscal processes. Fiscal processes used to be pro-cyclical, so when you had a shock, you had to tighten the fiscal, which worsened the impact of the shock. This time around, we were able to be counter-cyclical, so improved fiscal processes. And also improved banking systems. Banking systems used to be weak, so you had external shock and the banking system would have problems, and that would amplify the crisis. Now the banking systems had enough buffers, liquidity, capital, provisions, so they absorb the shock well and they are rebounding very nicely in this recovery phase. So that's a very, very important factor that explains the resiliency of Latin America. The second factor is the manner in which Latin America has integrated to the world. In this report, one point we want to highlight is that we need to revisit the debate on financial globalization. One very strong argument that used to be given by very famous economists, including Joe Stiglitz, was that Latin America too aggressively opened up to international financial markets. And that was a source of vulnerability, and that was a mistake. What this crisis shows is that even though Latin America is very open to international financial markets, it was able to weather the crisis well. So one factor that we find out is that what matters is not so much the fact that you're integrated. What matters is the way in which you're integrated. And we find out that during the 2000s, this millennium, Latin America transformed the way in which it integrates itself to international financial markets. In particular, in the past, Latin America used to be a net debtor to the world in debt contracts, and that exposed Latin America to risks of rolling over the debt, interest rate changes, sentiment changes. Latin America has now become a net creditor to the world in terms of debt, but it has become a larger net debtor to the world in terms of FDI, foreign direct investment. So we are integrating more as a debtor in the equity side and more as a creditor in the debt side, and that's a more robust combination that makes us more resilient. And then the third policy-related factor has to do with the diversification policies of our trade structures. Latin America has increasingly diversified the markets with which it trades, and so it has become much less sensitive to economic activity in the rich countries of Europe and the US, and much more sensitive to economic activity in China. And of course, as a result of that, with China growing the way it is, Latin America is doing much better in this cycle.